At 39, the silent tragedy of Jack Osbourne leaves fans shocked right now. The knock on Jack Osbourne's Los Angeles door at 3:45 a.m. on July 22, 2025, changed everything. Through the window, he could see a familiar face, someone who had worked for the Osbourne family for 30 years. In that moment, before a word was spoken, Jack knew his world was about to shatter. What he didn't expect was that this devastating loss would also expose the silent battle he had been fighting for over a decade, revealing a tragedy that has left fans around the world shocked and heartbroken. At 39, Jack Osbourne is facing the most challenging period of his life. The death of his father, Ozzy Osbourne, just weeks after their final time together, has thrust him into a spotlight he never wanted. One that illuminates not just his grief, but the ongoing health battle that has been silently ravaging his body for 13 years. The revelation of how multiple sclerosis has been affecting his daily life, combined with the crushing weight of losing his father and best friend, has created a perfect storm of tragedy that few outside his inner circle truly understood until now. When I looked through my window and I saw it was him, I just knew something bad had happened, Jack revealed in an emotional YouTube video posted 6 weeks after his father's death. And I was informed that my father had passed. But what Jack didn't share in that moment was how the stress and grief of losing Ozzy has accelerated his MS symptoms in ways that have terrified both him and his family. If this revelation about Jack's silent struggle is as heartbreaking to you as it is to those who love him, please consider leaving a like to support coverage of these important health awareness stories. Your engagement helps bring attention to the realities that many people face in silence. Multiple sclerosis, the autoimmune disease that Jack was diagnosed with in 2012 at just 26 years old, has been a constant shadow over his life for more than a decade. The condition, which causes the immune system to attack the protective covering of nerves, leading to communication problems between the brain and the rest of the body, has forced Jack to completely restructure his approach to life, work, and family. But it's only now, in the aftermath of his father's death, that the full extent of his daily struggle is becoming clear. Right now, am I going to be in a wheelchair? No, Jack said in a previous interview about his condition. But if I don't take care of myself, who knows? Those words, spoken years ago, have taken on a haunting new significance as those close to him reveal how Ozzy's death has impacted his health in ways that extend far beyond emotional grief. The timing of Ozzy's passing has created what medical professionals call a perfect storm for someone living with MS. The stress of losing a loved one can trigger what's known as a relapse or flare-up, where symptoms temporarily worsen or new symptoms appear. For Jack, this has meant dealing not only with the emotional devastation of losing his father, but also with physical symptoms that have become increasingly difficult to hide from the public eye. Sources close to the family reveal that in the weeks following Ozzy's death, Jack has experienced increased fatigue, coordination problems, and what he describes as brain fog, cognitive issues that make it difficult to concentrate or remember things clearly. These symptoms, while not uncommon for someone with MS, have been exacerbated by the stress and sleep deprivation that come with profound grief. People see Jack at public events or in interviews, and they think he's holding up well, says a family friend who requested anonymity. But what they don't see is how much effort it takes for him to get through those appearances. The fatigue is overwhelming sometimes. There are days when getting out of bed feels like climbing Mount Everest. The silent nature of many MS symptoms means that Jack's struggles often go unnoticed by the general public. Unlike more visible disabilities, MS can be what's called an invisible illness. The person may look fine on the outside, while dealing with significant challenges internally. For someone in the public eye like Jack, this creates an additional burden of maintaining appearances while privately battling symptoms that can be debilitating. The disease has already forced Jack to make significant lifestyle changes over the years. He injects Copaxone medication daily, follows a strict supplement regimen, and has undergone hormone replacement therapy. He's traveled to Europe for experimental stem cell treatments and has completely overhauled his diet and exercise routine. But despite these efforts, MS remains an unpredictable condition that can flare up without warning. The thing about MS is that you can be doing everything right, taking your medication, eating well, exercising, And then stress, or even just a change in weather, can trigger symptoms, explains Dr. Patricia Coyle, a neurologist who specializes in multiple sclerosis at Stony Brook University. For someone dealing with the loss of a parent, especially a parent as significant as Ozzy was to Jack, the emotional and physical stress can be overwhelming. What makes Jack's situation particularly heartbreaking is how his relationship with his father had evolved in recent years. As Ozzy's health declined due to Parkinson's disease, Jack had become not just a son, but a caregiver and advocate. The two had grown incredibly close, with Jack often serving as a bridge between his father and the outside world. The History Channel series Ozzy and Jack's World Detour, which ran from 2016 to 2018, had given fans a glimpse into their relationship, showing a father and son who genuinely enjoyed each other's company despite their health challenges. What viewers didn't fully grasp was how much Jack was already struggling with his own condition, while trying to support his father through his declining health. Jack was essentially managing two chronic illnesses, his own MS and his father's Parkinson's, observes a former crew member from the show. He never complained, never made excuses, but you could see how exhausted he was. He was determined not to let either condition define their time together. The weeks leading up to Ozzy's death had actually been some of the happiest in their relationship. Jack had been planning a family vacation to Portugal when his children came down with stomach flu, forcing him to cancel the trip. Instead, he spent that extra week at the family home in England, watching his father bask in the afterglow of his triumphant Back to the Beginning concert. "My dad was in an amazing mood. He was really happy," Jack recalled in his YouTube video. Every day he was opening up the newspaper and seeing different reviews and different stories from the Back to the Beginning show, and it was great. What Jack didn't mention was how difficult it was for him to enjoy those moments fully, knowing that his own health was becoming increasingly unpredictable. The multiple sclerosis had been affecting his balance and coordination more noticeably in recent months. Friends and family members had noticed him using walls and furniture for support more often, though he tried to make these movements look casual. The fatigue that comes with MS had also been getting worse, requiring him to carefully manage his energy throughout each day. "Jack has always been someone who pushes through pain and exhaustion," says a longtime friend. "But MS doesn't care how tough you are or how determined you are. It forces you to acknowledge your limitations, and that's been really hard for someone who's always prided himself on being able to handle anything." The cognitive symptoms of MS, often called cog fog by those who experience it, have been particularly challenging for Jack given his work in television and media. Finding the right words, remembering names and dates, and maintaining focus during long filming sessions have all become more difficult. These issues, while manageable on good days, can become overwhelming during periods of stress. "There are times when I'll be in the middle of a sentence and just lose the word I'm looking for," Jack has confided to close friends. "It's not just annoying, it's terrifying. You start wondering if this is just a bad day or if it's the beginning of something worse." The unpredictability of MS symptoms has also affected Jack's role as a father to his 4 children. He has 3 daughters with his ex-wife Lisa Stelly, Pearl, Andy Rose, and Minnie Theodora, and a son Maple with his current partner Ari Gearhart. Balancing his health needs with his responsibilities as a father has become an increasingly complex challenge. "Jack is an incredible father, but MS makes everything harder," explains someone close to the family. "Simple things like playing with the kids in the backyard or helping with homework can become exhausting. He never wants his children to feel like his illness is limiting their childhood, so he pushes himself beyond what's probably healthy. The guilt associated with having a chronic illness while raising young children is something Jack has struggled with intensely. He worries about being a burden on his family, about not being able to participate fully in his children's lives, and about what the future might hold as his condition potentially progresses. These concerns have been amplified since Ozzy's death. Watching his father struggle with Parkinson's disease and ultimately lose that battle has forced Jack to confront his own mortality and the possibility that MS could significantly impact his future quality of life. "Seeing what my dad went through, watching how the Parkinson's affected him, it's impossible not to think about my own situation," Jack has privately shared with friends. "I know MS and Parkinson's are different diseases, but they're both neurological conditions that can get worse over time. It's scary. The financial pressures associated with managing a chronic illness have also been a source of stress for Jack. While the Osbourne family is financially comfortable, the costs associated with cutting-edge MS treatments, regular medical monitoring, and lifestyle modifications add up quickly. Jack has been exploring every possible treatment option, from traditional medications to experimental therapies, but each new avenue requires significant investment. People assume that because Jack comes from a famous family, money isn't an issue, notes a source familiar with his medical care. But MS treatment can be incredibly expensive, especially when you're trying to access the newest therapies. Jack is fortunate to have options that many people don't, but it's still a significant financial burden. The emotional toll of managing MS has been particularly heavy in the wake of his father's death. Grief itself can trigger MS symptoms, and the stress of public mourning, while dealing with a chronic illness, has created what Jack describes as the hardest period of my life. I'm trying to grieve my father properly, while also managing a disease that makes everything harder, Jack has confided to close friends. Some days I wake up and I can barely function because of the fatigue, but I still have to be present for my kids. I still have to deal with media requests about my dad. I still have to keep living. It's overwhelming. The support system around Jack has become crucial during this period. His mother Sharon, despite dealing with her own grief, has been a constant source of strength. His sisters Kelly and Amy have also rallied around him, understanding that his grief is compounded by his health challenges. The family has always been protective of Jack's health, but now it's become even more important, reveals a family insider. They're all aware that stress can make his symptoms worse, so they're trying to shield him from unnecessary pressures while still allowing him to grieve and honor his father's memory. Jack's relationship with his medical team has also intensified since Ozzy's death. His neurologist has increased the frequency of their appointments, monitoring him closely for any signs that the stress is triggering a significant relapse. His medication regimen has been adjusted, and his doctors have emphasized the importance of stress management and adequate rest. Grief is hard enough on a healthy person, explains Dr. Coyle. For someone with MS, it can be physically dangerous. The stress hormones released during intense emotional periods can trigger inflammation in the nervous system, potentially leading to new lesions or worsening of existing symptoms. The physical manifestations of Jack's MS have become more noticeable to those who spend time with him regularly. The tingling sensations in his legs that he's experienced for years have become more frequent and sometimes painful. His balance issues have worsened, requiring him to be more careful when walking, especially when he's tired. Jack has always been someone who's very physical. He loves adventure sports. He's always been active, notes a friend who's known him for years. Watching him have to slow down to be more cautious about physical activities, it's heartbreaking. He's still young, but this disease is forcing him to live like someone much older. The impact on his professional life has been significant as well. Jack has had to turn down several projects in recent months, not just because of his grief, but because of the unpredictability of his MS symptoms. The entertainment industry, with its demanding schedules and high-stress environment, can be particularly challenging for someone managing a chronic illness. There are days when Jack just can't work, explains someone who's collaborated with him professionally. It's not that he doesn't want to, he's incredibly dedicated, but his body won't let him. The fatigue can be so severe that thinking clearly becomes impossible. It's frustrating for someone who's always been very driven. The social isolation that often comes with chronic illness has been another challenge for Jack. While he has a strong support system, there are aspects of living with MS that can only be understood by others who have the condition. The unpredictability, the invisible nature of many symptoms, and the emotional impact of living with an incurable disease can be isolating even within loving families. Jack has connected with other people who have MS, and those relationships have been really important, says a source close to him. There's something about talking to someone who truly understands what you're going through that can't be replicated, no matter how supportive your family is. The advocacy work that Jack has done for MS awareness has taken on new urgency since his father's death. He's become more open about discussing his condition, recognizing that his platform can help raise awareness and reduce stigma around invisible illnesses. Jack realizes that his visibility can help other people who are struggling with MS, notes someone involved in his advocacy work. If Jack Osbourne, who comes from this famous family and has resources that most people don't have, still struggles with this disease. It helps people understand that MS doesn't discriminate. It affects everyone differently. The treatment protocols that Jack follows are extensive and demanding. The daily injections of Copaxone can cause injection site reactions and flu-like symptoms. The various supplements and hormones he takes require careful timing and monitoring. The dietary restrictions he follows to manage inflammation can make social situations challenging. Managing MS is like having a part-time job, observes Dr. Coyle. Between medications, appointments, lifestyle modifications, and monitoring symptoms, it requires a significant time commitment. For someone who's also dealing with grief and trying to maintain a career and family life, it can be overwhelming. The uncertainty about the future progression of his MS has been particularly difficult for Jack since his father's death. Watching Ozzy's health decline over the years has made him acutely aware of how neurological conditions can progress unpredictably. Jack has said to people that he's scared about what the next 10 or 20 years might look like, reveals a close friend. He's seen what happened to his dad, and while MS is different from Parkinson's, there are similarities in terms of the progressive nature of neurological diseases. It's a fear he carries with him every day. The impact on his children has been something Jack thinks about constantly. He wants to be present and active in their lives, but he also worries about the burden his illness might place on them as they grow older. Jack is very conscious of not wanting his kids to become caregivers, says someone who knows the family well. He remembers taking care of his dad in those final years, and while it was meaningful, it was also difficult. He doesn't want his children to have to go through that with him. The research into new MS treatments has given Jack some hope, but it's also a source of stress. Keeping up with the latest developments, deciding whether to try experimental treatments, and managing the side effects of various medications requires constant decision-making during a time when cognitive clarity can be compromised. There's always some new treatment or study that Jack is reading about, notes a source familiar with his medical care. It's wonderful that there are options, but it can also be overwhelming. Every decision feels like it could be life-changing, and that pressure is intense. The public nature of Jack's grief has added another layer of complexity to his health management. Media appearances, interviews about his father, and public events all require energy that his MS-compromised system doesn't always have available. Jack wants to honor his father's memory properly, but every public appearance is a gamble with his health, explains someone close to the family. He never knows if he's going to have a good day or a bad day until he wakes up. Planning anything becomes incredibly difficult. The sleep disturbances that often accompany both grief and MS have created a vicious cycle for Jack. Poor sleep worsens MS symptoms, which increases stress, which interferes with sleep even more. Breaking this cycle has required intervention from sleep specialists and careful management of his environment. Jack's sleep patterns have been completely disrupted since his father died, reveals a family source. And poor sleep makes everything worse. The fatigue, the cognitive issues, the emotional volatility. It's been a real struggle to get that back on track. The financial planning for long-term care has also become a priority for Jack since witnessing his father's decline. While he hopes his MS will remain manageable, he's realistic about the possibility that he may need significant care in the future. Jack has been working with financial planners to make sure he's prepared for different scenarios, says someone familiar with his planning process. It's not something a 39-year-old typically has to think about in detail, but chronic illness forces you to plan for possibilities you'd rather not consider. The relationships in Jack's life have been tested by his health challenges, particularly in the wake of his father's death. Some friendships have deepened as people have shown up to support him, while others have faded as the reality of chronic illness has proven too difficult for some to handle. You learn who your real friends are when you're dealing with something like this, Jack has shared privately. Some people disappear because they don't know how to handle illness, while others surprise you with their support. It's been eye-opening. The impact on his romantic relationship with Ari Gearhart has also been significant. Dating and maintaining a relationship while managing a chronic illness requires a level of communication and understanding that not everyone is prepared for. Ari has been incredible through all of this, notes someone close to the couple. But it's a lot to ask of anyone, to be with someone who has an unpredictable chronic illness and is also dealing with profound grief. Their relationship has really been tested, but it's also shown how strong their connection is. The medical monitoring that Jack requires has intensified since his father's death. Regular MRI scans to check for new lesions, blood work to monitor the effects of his medications, and neurological examinations to assess the progression of his symptoms all require significant time and emotional energy. Every scan, every test, Jack is wondering if this will be the one that shows his MS has gotten worse, explains a source familiar with his medical care. The anxiety around medical appointments has gotten worse since his dad died, because he's seen how quickly health can decline. The dietary modifications that Jack follows to manage his MS have become even more important during this stressful period. Anti-inflammatory diets, elimination of certain triggers, and careful attention to nutrient intake all require constant vigilance at a time when grief has affected his appetite and energy for meal planning. Jack has to be really careful about what he eats, but grief has made that much harder, notes someone close to him. Sometimes he doesn't have the energy to prepare the foods he needs, or the stress makes him want to eat things that he knows will make his symptoms worse. It's a constant balance. The exercise regimen that Jack maintains to help manage his MS symptoms has also been disrupted by his grief and increased fatigue. Regular physical activity is crucial for managing MS, but the energy required to maintain an exercise routine can be overwhelming when dealing with chronic illness and loss. Jack knows he needs to exercise to help with his MS, but some days he can barely get out of bed, says a friend who exercises with him. The guilt around not being able to maintain his routine just adds to his stress, which makes everything worse. The future planning that Jack is now doing extends beyond just medical and financial considerations. He's working on legacy projects, ensuring that his children will understand their grandfather's impact and thinking about what he wants his own legacy to be. Jack is very aware that his time might be more limited than he originally thought, reveals someone close to him. Not because his MS is necessarily getting worse, but because watching his father's decline has made him realize how quickly things can change. He's thinking more seriously about what he wants to accomplish while he's still healthy enough to do it. The advocacy platform that Jack has built around MS awareness has become more important to him since his father's death. He sees an opportunity to use his grief and his ongoing health challenges to help others who are struggling with similar issues. Jack has talked about being more open about his MS journey, especially the difficult parts, notes someone involved in his advocacy work. He realizes that people need to see the reality of living with chronic illness, not just the success stories. His platform gives him an opportunity to help people feel less alone. The support groups and MS community that Jack has connected with have become even more crucial during this difficult period. Having people who understand both the medical and emotional challenges of living with MS has provided a form of support that even his loving family can't fully provide. The MS community has really rallied around Jack since his father died, says someone involved in MS advocacy. They understand that grief can trigger symptoms, and they've been checking in on him, sharing resources, and just providing the kind of understanding that comes from shared experience. As Jack Osbourne continues to navigate this incredibly difficult period of his life, the silent tragedy of his MS battle serves as a reminder that even those who seem to have everything, fame, family support, financial resources, can struggle with challenges that remain largely invisible to the outside world. His courage in continuing to function publicly while privately battling a chronic illness and profound grief has shocked fans who are only now beginning to understand the full scope of what he faces every day. The revelation of Jack's ongoing struggles has highlighted the reality that millions of people live with chronic illnesses that don't always show visible symptoms. His willingness to gradually open up about his experiences with MS, especially during this period of intense grief, has the potential to help reduce stigma and increase understanding around invisible disabilities. At 39, Jack Osbourne is facing challenges that would overwhelm many people, yet he continues to show up for his children, honor his father's memory, and use his platform to help others. The silent tragedy of his MS battle, now compounded by the loss of his father, represents a form of courage that goes largely unrecognized, the courage to keep living fully in the face of an uncertain future. If this story about Jack Osbourne's silent battle has opened your eyes to the realities of living with chronic illness, please share it and leave a like. His journey reminds us that compassion and understanding are needed for the struggles we can't see, and that true strength often lies in continuing to live, love, and contribute even when every day is a battle.